Thank you for joining me for week 6 of the Me and White Supremacy virtual pilgrimage. I'm Reverend John Borthwick, and I'm the minister here at St. Andrew's in Guelph. And over the next several months, I'm encouraging my congregation to accompany me on this pilgrimage that I'm taking through the book Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. Week 6. What is white exceptionalism? So again, I like to refer to the book directly and would continue to encourage you to get the book and read it yourself and go through the reflection questions for your own self and for your own growth. White exceptionalism. White exceptionalism is the belief that you, as a person holding white privilege, are exempt from the effects, benefits, and conditioning of white supremacy, and therefore that the work of anti-racism does not really apply to you. Last week, I think I said that Layla really shook me to my core as we talked about white superiority. And this week, she's done it again. It's almost as if she's reading the email exchanges and discussion exchanges that I'm having with folks as I and others engage a little deeper in this material. One of the things she talks about in this chapter specifically is related to how, as someone who holds white privilege, we might find ourselves offended, hurt by someone calling us out as racist. Maybe even just by things that we may have done mistakenly or unconsciously. We didn't realize we were doing something wrong. And how, as someone who holds white privilege, that's often something that we want to defend against. And the exceptionalism idea is, I'm not like those people. I'm not like that. I wouldn't do that. I've even heard it articulated, and I've felt it within my very being at times throughout the decades of my life, where there's a sense of, in a defense kind of mechanism, receiving some negative feedback from something I've done, something I've said, some way I've acted in this world. When BIPOC calls me out, there's been this sense of, well, hey, you don't know what an exception I am. I mean, I'm one of the nice guys kind of notion. This, over the last few weeks, and I think it's obviously she's doing it really well. We're only in week 6. And, she's just starting to shake a little more around the foundations of why one is doing this work, why we're engaging in this. I said at the beginning of this that a pilgrimage is really about a sense of personal transformation. And so for myself, as I've read and listened and reflected on the first 5 weeks so far, even in the exchanges I'm having with some folks who I'm going a little deeper with, there's been this sense of, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't believe I think that way. Those are the honest reflections I've been having. Now, I'm not trying to engage in an exceptionalism. I'm just going to add to that. But what I'm pushing myself, and which is the call in this chapter, what I'm pushing myself to do is to keep on keeping on, is to push forward and continuing to do the work, to continue to unpeel, uncover, reveal within myself some of the things that I need to really think on throughout my history, my upbringing, my engagement with other people, and how I see the world around me. So I might say in an email exchange or in a discussion forum or just within myself, I don't think I think that way. But this is now how I've made it more of a condition, not conditional, a way of sort of bracketing. I say the phrase, I'd like to believe that I don't think that way. But as this book is intending to do, it's putting a light on some of the darker places within my existence and forcing me, confronting me, telling me I need to engage a little deeper and keep doing the work. Because it's important that we do that, because as she says, by not doing that, we have a tendency to sort of put our foot off the gas if you hold white privilege. Don't feel like you need to do it. See it more as, well, I'm good. I've got my stuff, so, I guess this is something somebody else will take care of. But it's the consistency of standing up and saying that I'm going to devote my life now to anti-racism. Devote my life in some way to dismantling the systemic things that I see in my universe, my world, my community, myself, that need to be changed and unpacked. Maybe this is a helpful final sort of thought that came to me this way. Maybe I'll offer two thoughts, things that came this past week. In our community, in our country, Canada, we're experiencing a lot of conversation around our Indigenous peoples. And again, I said that phrase, our Indigenous peoples. They are not ours. They are the Indigenous community. And again, I apologize for that. In my desire to seek inclusiveness, in my desire to include everybody in the family, whatever that might look like, there's this way we speak where we say our, and they're not ours. They are the Indigenous community. And so within that, I'm remembering a teacher who offered some wise words, when an Indigenous teacher, when she was speaking to a community gathering of mostly what you might call settlers, white people who held white privilege, majority. And she was talking about colonization and the impact on the Indigenous community throughout their history. And one of the things she confronted us with was, people in this room, you need to be decolonized. You've been colonized as well. You need to be decolonized. And those words sit with me all the time. And I think that's a bit of what Layla's getting at. I want to end with a final quote that I read this week from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was a German theologian who was executed by the Nazis near the end, almost the last few days of the war. He'd spoken out against Hitler and was a theologian who was writing and had the privilege of getting out of Germany, but he stayed and did continued to speak out, and it got him killed. But this is what he said. We are not simply to bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself. We are not simply to bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself. There's a call to action for us for today. So, may we continue to do what is right and not what is easy. Thank you for joining me.